On Daf Yud Ches Amud Aleph, on the second line, Ugzar Din the Yachid. So far, the one's talking about the Yom Adin and came into Tshuva, and it mentioned that Rabbi Yochanan said that Gzar Din of the Tzibor could be nullified. Even though there's a Gzar Din, which we call the Chasima, there's a Din and then there's a Gzar Din. So even though there's a Gzar Din, it's possible to be torn up, and the Gemara had Kashis, the Gemara answered all the Kashis, and now the Gemara is going back to say on top that somehow that even the Gzar Din of the Yachid is also possible to be nullified. Gzar Din the Yachid Tanoi, even Gzar Din the Yachid, which till now we said is not possible to nullify, but Tanoi, some Machlokes and some hold that it is possible. The Tanya, Meir Omer, Shnam Shavu Lamita, V'chol Yon Shava, two people went to bed, fell into bed. We used to go up to the bed. We fall to bed, but they used to have high beds, so 10 tefachim high, so you had to climb into bed. The old expression of climbing into bed. Nowadays you don't climb into bed, nowadays you fall into bed. But they used to have a higher bed. So two people got sick, and Chol Yon Shava, equal sickness. Neither two people were in judgment. Rashi says capital punishment for a capital crime. And Dinan Shava, both of them, it looks like the same idea. The both of them had the same crime. And then Zeh Yarad was Lo Yarad. By the people who were sick, one of them went out of bed, the other person didn't get out of bed, he died. Zeh Nisel was Lo Nisel. In the case of the judgment, one person was saved, the other person was not. If Neymar Zeh Yarad was Lo Yarad, Zeh Nisel was Lo Nisel. How come there's a difference? Why do we see one person getting out of the sickness, one person getting out of his judgment, another person not? The answer is both of them prayed, both of them davened, but one of them was answered, one of them was not answered. And that's the question. Why was he not answered? If how come one of them was answered, one of them was not answered? The answer is because he didn't daven the same quality prayer. The Gemara calls it a tefillah shlema. Rashi says that he was machaven, he davened with intention. So the difference was if he davened well. If you didn't, that you can have two people that have the same situation, and the reason why one person was saved is because he davened well, and the other person did not daven well. I have a thought. I don't have any proof, but I think it's pashut that the Gemara doesn't mean to say that every prayer is always answered. As we could find, I think you could find people that there are surely other factors besides the prayer. I think the Gemara means to say this could be the difference. It could be the whole difference is because he prayed well, and if the other one would have also would have been saved. But I don't think the Gemara means to say that that's the only factor. I think that answers a question that people ask. Does this mean to say that every time a person is not saved, it's only because he could have done better? I don't think that's what the Gemara is saying. But
Excuse me, Rebbe.
Yes, please.
When we're saying that he davened tefillah shlema, this was after the Gazar Din. So and even though there was a Gazar Din against him, the fact that he davened this tefillah shlema, it was changed, and he's a yachid.
Right, you're correct. But the question is, how do you know that? You're right, but I don't understand the Gemara. How does the Gemara know it's talking about after the Gazar Din?
I don't know. I'm just saying that's the Tanakhama's
right.
position.
That's what the Gemara seems to be saying, and I don't know how the Gemara sees that it's talking about after the Gazar Din. Maybe it's talking about before the Gazar Din, and one davened, one did not, and that's why he was answered. But after the Gazar Din, maybe it would not help. There seems to be a kasha on the Gemara, but the Gemara is saying, like you said, that the Gemara assumes, for some reason, I don't see it, that it's talking about after the Gazar Din, and still a tefillah shlema can rescind the verdict. That the reason
maybe the reason the Gemara assumed to say after Gzar Din is because one of them actually died.
Okay. I have to let it digest, but it sounds good. If anybody, thank you. I didn't have a shot. So you're saying if someone actually died and whatever, so that means that the Gzar Din was carried out. Yashikov, thank you. It sounds good. That the reason why one person was not answered because after the Gzar Din, so Rabbi is the one who holds that by a Yachid. This is the one of Yachid. All these cases, he was sick or he was being judged, and after the Gzar Din, it's not possible to rescind it anymore. And the person that was answered because it was still before, for him it was before the Gzar Din. That seems to be the end of the Brisa. The next word of Yitzchak is an Amor. I think Rabbi Yitzchak is an Amora, so it's not part of the Brisa. So when the Gemara said Tanoihi, so it meant Rav Meir and Rav Elazar. And as was explained, Rav Meir The Gemara holds that it was, even though it's after the Gzar Din, it's possible to be answered with a tefillah shlema. And as Rabbi Nissen said, because the other person did die, so you see it's a Gzar Din. And that's the end of the brisa. There are those that learn that the Yitzchak is part of the brisa still, but I think it's very difficult because I think we find other places that Yitzchak is an Amora. So I would explain, like Rabbeinu Chananel says over here, that the brisa is over now, and the two Tanaim are Meir and Rabbi Elazar. So we found the Mandamar, Rabbi Meir, without saying it beferish, that he holds even a Gzar Din of a Yachid could be rescinded. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar, Amora, that it is good to cry out even after the Gzar Din, and the Ran explains here that even if it doesn't rescind it completely, it's not able to tear it up, but it does help. That a Yafat Saka, that it could minimize the din, even if you hold that it doesn't tear up the Gzar Din, but it is beneficial. So we had Chidushim already. The first one is Machlok. Some will even by Gzar Din, the Yachid could also be nullified even by Yachid. And we found a Yitzchak that says that Yafat Saka, does point out the Gemara before, when the Gemara spoke about how come we daven after Rosh Hashanah, Akitziyah we read, the Gemara said according to Rav Yossi, or even according to Rabbanan, Rav Yossi holds that a person is judged every day, not after Rosh Hashanah. So according to him, we can daven every day. Or the Gemara says even according to Rabbanan, like Rav Yitzchak says, that Yafat Saka, that it helps something. The Gemara could say that there's also Rabbi Meir here that says that a person could nullify the din even by Gzar Din the Yachid also. So the Gemara could have answered that earlier also.
Rabbi, in regard to your question that also Avram Nissen addressed, the Ritva says shortly, as Divrei Gemara Sha'amra, Shemachlokas Tanaim he, Dahainu Rabbi Eliezer v'Rabbi Yitzchak.
I mentioned that some of Rabbi Yitzchak, but my question was Rabbi Yitzchak's an Amora.
It'll be one sentence, I'll be over. Ubadas Tanakama, that would be Rabbi Meir. Ein raya shesover moelis tefila la'acher Gzar Din she'takein shehu diber al kodem Gzar Din va'amar al zeh she'tefila shleima kodem Gzar Din moelis. That is
okay. That's what we said, and we said that the difficulty is that Yitzchak seems to be an Amora, and therefore must be Rav Meir. And the question is what he's seen Rav Meir, and Rav Nissen said of Pshat. If it's possible always to say the token without reading the words, if it helps everybody, just to say the content that it says without the words, I appreciate it.
But the Ritva does say that they are Tanayim, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yitzchak.
The question is, Rabbi Yitzchak, you find all over, and as an Amor, you don't find Rabbi Yitzchak as a Tana. It'll be a one-timer that you find Rabbi Yitzchak as being a Tana. We don't know who he is. That's difficulty under the Ritva.
Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak.
I'm talking about Rabbi Yitzchak. The Rabbi Yitzchak with a Yud also, he seems to be an Amor. The Gemara continues. The Gemara goes back to the whole subject that everybody so far was happy to say that a Gzar Din of a Tzibur could be torn up, but the Gemara is going to challenge that also. Is it true that the Gzar Din of a Tzibur could be torn up? One pasuk says, cleanse your heart from evil, talking to Yerushalayim, the whole as Tzibur. But Kasiv, not a pasuk says that it's not going to help to cleanse yourself. That even if you're going to wash with neser, call it soap, even if you'll use detergent to cleanse yourself, and you can use a lot of boris, you use a lot of sabon, that your sin is still going to be stained before me. Here's the word kesem. Yesterday I mentioned that I thought that the word kesem was only a stain in Aramaic. I made a mistake. You see that it's also in Hebrew. We had yesterday in Tehillim the word kesem ophir. Over there I meant gold. And I said the word kesem, and other times you see it means a stain. I thought it was only in Aramaic. Here you see this even in Hebrew. That your sin is going to be stained before me. So there's a pasuk that says that it helps to wash yourself, and the other pasuk says it doesn't help. And the Gemara is asking that seems to say that sometimes it helps tshuva, sometimes it doesn't help. My love is the difference not before the decree or after the decree. And he's talking about the tzibur, it's talking about Yerushalayim as a whole. So does that not say that it doesn't help tshuva after the Gzar Din, even on the tzibur? The Gemara answers no, that's something else altogether. Low, that's not the case. Either vidi lacha Gzar Din. It is possible to cleanse yourself after the Gzar Din. One, does it not help to after the Gzar Din? Sometimes there's a Gzar Din that has an oath together with it that Hashem swears, I'm not going to accept your tshuva. If there's a Gzar Din, even though it's a Gzar Din, it's a verdict that's sealed. But if there's no shvuah, then it is possible for the tzibur at least to nullify the decree. But if it was with a shvuah that Hashem says, I'm not going to accept your tshuva, then that cannot be rescinded. Shmuel Bar Ami, as he says, Benign the Gzardin Sheshim Oshua Shen and Nikra. What is the source that we see that Gzardin that had an oath together with it is not possible to be torn up? Shenamar, Ulachain Ishmati Leveiseli, and Yuskaper Avon Veiseli, Vizavachov Mincha. When the house of Eli over there talks about Chofni and Pinchas, that they sinned with the Bizoin Kachim and other Averis. So it says Hashem swore to the house of Eli, the whole dynasty of Eli, that they're not going to be atoned for with Karbanos. And that means, of course, they're doing tshuva. They bring Karbanos without tshuva is without a question. It means even though they do tshuva and they bring Karbanos, still Hashem swears that the tshuva is not going to be accepted. So that's different. A shvua is different. Here the shvua was that they're not going to be, the tshuva is not going to be accepted. So to get atoned for, atoned means that they won't get the punishment. They're still going to get the punishment. Of course, it's good to do tshuva, even if a person is going to get punished. He should do tshuva. That's anyway. But the point that if there's going to be atonement, that he shouldn't be punished. Here it says that it's not going to, Hashem's not going to accept that it should be atoned for. So what do we learn now? No. Yeah. Yeah. The Eli Achafni Pinchas over there in the beginning of Shmuel. There is a nickname for Elio. They call Eli, but Eli is with the ayin. Elio is Aleph. This is different. Eli is not Elio, and Eli we call Eli is a short nickname for Elio. That's there's such a name, Aleph Lamed Yud, Eli. But there's Eli. It's not such a common name. Eli is not such a common name. This word there's used by some, but it's not as common as Elio or Eli. But this is Eli. So what do we have here? That even though we said the Gzardin of Tzibur could be rescinded, but if it was with a shvua, and let's point out that the shvua is not that the Gzardin is going to happen. The shvua is that the shvua is not going to be accepted. Like it says, Nishbati, that the sin is not going to be atoned for with the Zevach Mincha. So that the Gemara leaves that's the way it is. That if there was a shvua, then it's not able to be nullified.
I'm not sure how this is an example. How could they can't do shuvah?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
The two sons of Eli died, so how could they do shuvah?
I think that is this. I think this pasuk is talking about even before they died. I'm pretty sure this pasuk says beforehand, and it says it's not going to help. Okay. And also, I would think that even since the decree was in all generations, on future generations, it was L'beis Eli. It happened for all generations. That the house of Eli, for all generations, like it's going to say soon, the stories that they died young. So, and it says that there's not going to be a kapara even with Zevach Mincha. So that means that even later generations also, you do find such a concept, this father Avonavosam, that later generations have to do tshuva, that they're not going in the same ways as the forefathers. And then you'd say that even if there was a decree on the whole family, so when they do tshuva, later generations, they should be able to get the gzeira off of them. Here it says it's not going to help, even for future generations. Now, the Gemara goes on about this story of Eli. Since it's brought in, we go on as a tangent. We're going on a side issue. Amar Rava, even though the pasuk says the shvur was that the shvur is not going to be accepted even with karbanos, but they are atoned for with the discourse of Torah. If they learn Torah, that's a kapara that they could get, and they could nullify the gzeira. Abaye says that they need more. They need also Torah and Gemilas Hasadim in order to get a kapara. The Gemara brings a story about them personally. There's a question here in the Gersa if it's Rava or Rabba. Here it says Rava, then it says Rabba. It seems to be both of them should be the same Gersa. Either both of them Rava, both of them Rabba. Rashi has a problem that the Gemara says right away Rabba Vabai with the base Eli Kas. Rabba and Abaye were both descendants of the house of Eli. Rashi has a problem that Rabba. Rashi had a Gersa Rava, and he finds that Rava was not a Kohen, so maybe the Gersa is Rava. There's a question of the Gersa over here. But whatever it is, it says that both of them were from the house of Eli, and there was a decree that they should die young, and they tried to get out of the decree. Abba, the Asak, the Torah, Chai, Arbon Shnin, Abaya, the Asak, the Torah, Milas Chasadim, Chai, Shitin Shnin. Abaya, he learned Torah, like the Shitasa that he said, the Torah Miskaper, he lived for 40 years. Unlike the Beis Eli that the Gemara is going to say soon, they died young, much younger. But Abai that learned Torah and also Gemilas Hasadim, so then he lived 60 years. So it seems that Abai's explanation maybe holds, you see that it worked better, that he did Torah and Gemilas Hasadim, he lived till 60. There was a family in Yerushalayim that they died, people died in their family, 18-year-olds. The first white line. They told Yochanan ben Zakkai about his family. People are dying, 18-year-olds. Maybe you're from the family of Eli, descendants of Eli. that the majority of your household is going to die in manhood, which means like 18, they're already in manhood, and they died young. So that must be the problem. Learn Torah and you'll live. And here it doesn't say Gemilas Chasadim, it just says Torah. They went like Rabbah, and it worked. They're able to live. It doesn't say how long they lived, but they did get out of the Gzeir by learning Torah. But Yikar knows some Mishpachas Rabbi Yochanan al-Shmo. They called the family of Rabbi Yochanan. They called it Rabbi Yochanan because he was the one who gave them the Eitzah how to get out of the Gzeir. So this came in Aga. Once the Gemara mentioned the point that Gzeir Din Sheishim Shvua is impossible to rescind. Here again, the Shvua was that the Karbanis will not be acceptable, and that it was impossible to rescind. But there are other things that Hashem did not swear about. Hashem did not swear that Torah shouldn't be Gemilas Chasadim. So therefore, it was able to have a kapara. But whatever it is a shvua, the shvua is not rescinded. The Gemara goes back to the sugya about the Gzar Din Shel Tzibur, if it's possible to be torn up. First, the way it was quoted that the decree of a tzibur is never sealed. It's never sealed, but the Gemara says that's not true. It's not sealed. This seems to be a drasha because the word is nechtam with a chaf. Nechtam means it's stained. That even if you're going to, the plus we had before, a couple of lines up, that it says that even if you're going to do tshuva, you're going to cleanse yourself, but your sin is still going to be stained. But here the Gemara seems to be dashing with a ches, as if it would say nun ches, tough man, which means sealed. So the pasuk says that your sin is sealed. How could you say that the sin is not sealed? It says that the sin is sealed. Ella, I meant to say, well, even though it's sealed, but it is possible to be torn. And that's Mamish same as the Gemara yesterday, that Gzar Din of a tzibur could be torn. Mamish same. Yesterday the Gemara dashed it from the pasuk V'shav Rufalo, that the word refuah means that it's healed, means that somebody has a problem. The problem is that there was not somebody, the tzibur, that V'shav Rufalo, that if he does tshuva, they will be healed, which means that the Gzar Din will be torn up. Here the Gemara is going to say the same thing from a different pasuk. Who is like Hashem our God whenever we call him? Whenever we call him means even after the Gzar Din, and it's talking about the tzibur. So you see that the tzibur could be atoned for even after the decree was sealed. And this is the same as Rabbi Yochanan said yesterday, that the Gzar Din of the tzibur could be torn. Very similar to yesterday's kasha, but the Gemara is asking it in a different style. But yesterday the Gemara also asked that you see that only it helps tshuva during a Seres Meir tshuva. After that, even if you bring all the Elin Avoyos, it doesn't help because the Gzar Din is already sealed. And the Gemara over this Yochid is different. So it's mamish the same thing as over here. The Gemara is kasha, Dish Hashem b'imotzo, seek Hashem when He is available. So here it says b'imotzo. It's not b'chol kareinu love. It's not always. So you see that there's only limited time, and that means that after the Gzar Din, then it's too late. So the Gemara says, you're right, by Yochid, that's the point. By Yitzibur, then the Yitzibur could tear up their Gzar Din. But a Yochid cannot, only Seres Meir tshuva. And the point is, Mamish's point, that Seres Meir tshuva is before the Gzar Din. Before the Gzar Din, it's possible still to change it. But after Yom Kippur, that's already the Gzar Din, then it's impossible. Then it's already impossible to tear it up. Again, we did have one Yomar that said a few lines ago, of Meir, that says you could tear a Gzar Din even of a Yochid. It comes out that's a machlokes. But this Rav is going back to Yochanan that a Gzar Din of a Yochid cannot be rescinded, but a Gzar Din of a tzibur can. Then the Gemara says, when is Behimotza? When is this time that a Yochid is possible to rescind the din? And the point is because it's before the Gzar Din. This is what we call Seres Meir tshuva. The 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, that's when it was the din, but it was before the Gzar Din, before the Chasima. Then it's possible still to rescind it, but it's not possible after the Gzar Din. Once the Gemara mentions this, the Gemara goes to say another drasha about the Seres Meir tshuva. Vayihi, top line. Vayihi ka'aseres hayomim. This is talking about Noval HaKarmeli, that David was going to kill him because of the ingratitude that he had, that David's men took care of him for a very long time and he guarded them. And then when it came time for the celebration and they were giving out food, so they didn't give David's men any food, and he came to kill him. Over there it says that Abigail interceded and convinced him to pardon him, to leave him alone. So he did. David went back, but Hashem struck Novel, and it says after 10 days, and then he died. So what is the 10 days about? What is all these 10 days about? When the servants of David came to ask Novel to give them portions of what they're celebrating, they also deserve, but he didn't. But he did give them a meal. When they came, he gave them a meal, but he didn't give them anything to take back for all the men. So because he gave some kind of food to those 10 men, so he was extended, his life was extended 10 days. Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Rav Nachman Amar Rabbi Bar Avua, Elu Yasar Yom Shben Hashem B'Kippurim. The 10 days is referring to Aseret Shmei Tshuva, that Hashem extended for him Aseret Shmei Tshuva, that he should be able to still do Tshuva, but he didn't, and that's when the Gzar Din was carried out, and then he died after Yom Kippur. So what have we learned so far today? A continuation of yesterday, that there was a machlokis, if it's possible to rescind the Gzar Din of a Yachid. As far as the Gzar Din of a Tzibur, it seems everybody holds that you can. The Gemara says if there's a shvua that the shuvah is not going to be accepted, then it won't be able to be an atonement. And the Gemara brings the point about by Beis Eli that there was a shvua that shuvah is not going to be accepted with kabbanis. And Agav, the Gemara said that even though not kabbanis, but maybe Torah, maybe Torah Gemilas Chasadim, and Rabban and Abai themselves were from Beis Eli, and they did that. And the story of Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, that he told people to were in that family that they should learn, and they were given life. The Mishnah continues. The Rosh Hashanah, Kol Boy Olam Olam Lefanav his name Aron. The Mishnah talks about Baba Prakim Olam Nida. There's a judgment 4 times on the world. Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, and Rosh Hashanah. All the people of the world, they pass by Hashem like Bnei Maron. And we don't know what Bnei Maron means. What's Bnei Maron? Very strange term. Ma'ike Bnei Maron. The Gemara is going to say a couple of shatim. Here means in Babel, I guess, that they translated it to mean like sheep. The word Amarna, Imra, is the Aramaic for the word sheep, and it means like sheep. Rashi says it means sheep when they're going out of the corral to be counted for Ma'aseh Behema one by one, and also means to say that each person is judged individually. The Shlokishama Kemalos Beis Maron is a place where there's a steep incline or something, and the people only can go single file, and therefore it's not another way of saying going individually. It's like the armies of the house of David. Rashi says that when they would count them, they also would go single file, not when they went to war, but when they would count them, they would go in single file, and that's another mashal for single file. So according to Rashi, all the 3 pshatim in the Gemara are coming to say that each one is the judge individually, and it gives 3 mashalim, possible pshatim in the Mishnah. What does it mean? Why is expressed as a single file? And the first 2 pshatim, it's clear why it's called Maron, because Amarna or Maron. But in the 3rd pshat, the Gemara doesn't say why the army of David is called Maron. So Rashi says that the word Maron means like Mar, Marus, authority, and it means the Chayolim, the army of the authority. There are other pshatim also, that's Rashi's pshat. So the idea is to say that each one is judged individually. But all of them, all the people are seen with one look. The word Sekya over here means, Rabbi Yochanan says to be mabit, the look. It seems to be an Aramaic word that's used as a translation of the word shazafatu, that it means to see. So all of them are seen simultaneously. Hashem sees everything, and he judges each one individually. I think that maybe when it says individually, it doesn't mean the single file is not translated to be one at a time. The single file is translated to say each one is individually judged. But Hashem sees everybody simultaneously. All of them are judged simultaneously, but each one is judged individually. I had thought also, I don't know if it's true. There might just be a vertal, I don't know. But maybe it means that Hashem, when he is judging everybody, he judges him also as part of the whole picture. That if you look at one thing alone, so it's one outcome will be. But if you look how it fits into the whole picture, the skira achas, you look at everything, so then you see it differently. So Hashem judges everybody, also taking everything into consideration. I don't know if that's what the Gemara means. It's just a thought. Also, we could bring the proof from our Mishnah to this point that everyone is seen simultaneously. It says in the Mishnah that there's a shenemar. The Mishnah says shenemar that on Rosh Hashanah, everyone the Kalvay all over the fun of Kivnei Moron, and shenemar hayotzi achli bama maybe I'll call Masehem. And the Gemara is going to dash in this pasuk and see in the pasuk, besides the point that Hashem is maybe I'll call Masehem, Hashem judges understands all of their actions. The Gemara is going to see in the pasuk also that he sees them simultaneously. My kama, what does the pasuk mean to say? Ilay machi kama. What does the pasuk mean to say? That Hashem created all of them with one heart. That means everyone has the same thoughts, the same desires. Is that true? That all the people have the same desires, the same thoughts? We see it's not so. You look at people, everyone has a different opinion. So what does it mean that Yachad Liban, Allah machi kama? Hayotzer, the creator, Roa, put in the word Roa, put in the word that the creator, not that he creates all of them together. The creator sees all of them together. Roa Yachad Liban. Maybe I'll call Masehem. So if that's what it says, if that's what Shas going to be, so that means that Hashem sees all of them simultaneously. That's Roa Yachad. Maybe I'll call Masehem. Hashem understands all of their actions individually, but he sees all of them together. Rashi has a little flavor to the drash that when you see the word Roa, they want to stuck it in. Rashi says it's going back on the pasuk before. Hishgiach HaKol Yoshvei. How does it go, Rashi? Rashi here says, it goes in the pasuk earlier, Shgiach al kol yoshvei oretz, and Yotza also Shgiach yachad asnimim. Rashi says, rewind a little bit in the pasuk, that Hashem is supervising Shgiach al kol yoshvei oretz, the creator, HaYotzer, Shgiach al kol yoshvei oretz yachad libam. Hashem looks at all of them simultaneously. So Rashi found a place where you can see the word roeh in the pasuk itself. It's in the previous pasuk. So that was the Gemara about Rosh Hashanah, that we had two Mishnayos so far. One was about the Arba Rosh Hashanah, and one was about Arba Prokim Molam Nidon. If that's good, we go on to the next sugya, and we're studying now more about the actual Kiddush HaChodesh, which is going to be a big part of our Masechah. So in general, introduction of Kiddush HaChodesh is that the months, the Hebrew months, it goes according to the lunar calendar. That's of course, doesn't go according to the solar, it goes according to the lunar calendar. That's the general thing. If you look, that's to back out, to zoom out, that there's no such thing as a solar month. The solar year, the years are determined by the sun. There's 4 seasons. It comes back to a full cycle in 365, but the months are lunar months. And no such thing as a solar month, no such thing as a lunar year. You put them together, you get a year. So they make approximately, it's going to be 12 months in a year, and then you have to adjust it with the leap year, and that's the Sod HaIbor, to be able to align the months with the year. They're going to make artificial months by saying 30, 31. They're just going to divide it also into 12, to divide 12 months into, it doesn't go with the moon at all. They don't go with the moon, they go with 12. They divide the 365 into 12, and they'll get 30 and 31. But the Jewish calendar goes according to the lunar months. And since the cycle of the moon is approximately 29 and a half days, and you're not going to average Chodesh every 29 and a half day, it only goes by full days. So 1 month is going to be 30, 1 month is going to be 29. And the way they did it is it seems the real way to do it is to aid them, that witnesses should come to testify that they saw the new moon. The moon, as everybody knows, waxes and wanes. It gets bigger and smaller, and at the end of the month, it disappears. The month, you can't see the moon. Of course, it's there, but you can't see it because of the angle between the earth, the sun, and the moon. So you can't see it, and then that's called the molad. The molad is the time that you can't see the moon at all. And then when it starts becoming visible again, that's the new moon. That's when the Rosh Chodesh is going to be. So since, and they don't come to Bezdin, and then Bezdin says Mekudash, Bezdin sanctifies the month to say that that's Rosh Chodesh. So people, the dates, the calendar, the Jewish calendar, with all the Yom Tovim is going to be dependent on Rosh Chodesh is. Was it the previous month, a 29-day month, and then the 30th day is already the first of the next month, or was it a 30-day month, and the next day is going to be Rosh Chodesh? So therefore, they had to publicize each month that it was important to know, to get as far as you can to publicize when is Rosh Chodesh. So the Mishnah talks about at a time when they used to send out shluchim. The Gemara is going to say later on, the Mishnah is going to say later on that there was a difficulty with that, and they had to make a new system. But the original system was to send out shluchim. However, they would go by horseback, by camelback, whatever they would go to spread the news when is Rosh Chodesh. So the Mishnah says that it was not necessary for each month to spread the news. Some of them doesn't make a difference. Even if you don't know what day of the month it is, it doesn't make a difference. But on Shisha Chadashim, Shluchim Yotzim, on 6 of the 12 months, the Shluchim would go out from Bezdin, from Yerushalayim, to spread the news when is Rosh Chodesh. On Nisan B'fnei Pesach. The first one is Nisan, because that's when Pesach is going to be. So they shouldn't be off by a day. They might be off and have a suffix of 2 days. Of course, the places where the shluchim did not reach, they're going to have Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golios. But the places that they're able to reach, they didn't have to make 2 days Pesach because they would know when is Rosh Chodesh. Then it skips Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, doesn't talk about nothing to go out for Iyar and Sivan and Tammuz, but Al-Av and Pnei Atainis. The Tisha B'Av, they should know when Tisha B'Av is. So also they went out in Rosh Chodesh Av to say when it was Rosh Chodesh, to know when the 9th of Av is. And then Elul also, Elul B'nei Rosh Hashanah, in order to know when Rosh Hashanah is going to be. There's a problem over here because Rosh Hashanah is still not going to know when it's going to be, because Rosh Hashanah is the first of Tishrei, and the first of Tishrei, they're not going to know when it is, even if they know when the first of Elul is. So the simple pshat is that you're right, it's true, but at least they want to have a suffix of 3 days, they only have a 2-day suffix. If they don't know how big Av was, and also how big Elul was, then they have to have a 3-day suffix. Now at least they know when Elul was, and only have a 1-day suffix, so they'll keep 2 days Rosh Hashanah instead of 3 days Rosh Hashanah. And then Al Tishrei, so even though Rosh Hashanah passed already, but to know when your Kippur is going to be, and to know when Sukkot is going to be, so also they sent out shluchim to know when Rosh Chodesh Tishrei was. And then after Tishrei is Cheshvan, nothing, no difference when the Cheshvan is, and then Kislev. Kislev is Chanukah to know when Chanukah comes out, and then Tevei is nothing, and Shvat nothing, but then Adar. Al Adar Mivnei Purim. Those are the 6 months that shluchim would go out. Uksha Beis Mikdash Kayim Yotzanaf Aliyah with the Pesach Katan, when the Beis Mikdash was standing and they bought a Pesach Sheni, so then they would go also on Iyar to know when it's going to be Pesach Sheni, that they should come on the right day to Yerushalayim to be in the Korban Pesach Sheni. What did the mission leave out? And then left out Iyar, because no difference when Iyar is, only Pesach Sheni, and Sivan. And it also doesn't make a difference. And over there, it's interesting because even though Shavuos comes out, but we don't care when it was Rosh Chodesh, because even is not dependent on Rosh Chodesh. It depends on 50 days from the Omer. So we don't care. Like Gemara said earlier, it could be the 5th of Sivan, the 6th of Sivan, 7th of Sivan. It's not connected to any date. So that's a good kasha. But Ram's asking, you should never need 2 days Shavuos. If you know when Pesach is, then you know when Shavuos is. That's a good kasha. And the Rambam has the kasha. They bring down that like a low psul kind of a thing. That really, in Chutz La'aretz, they shouldn't have to have 2 days Shavuos because they know when Pesach is. Count 50 days later. So he says that's kind of a low psul. So that was Nisan Iyar Sivan, and then Tammuz also. The more is going to ask about Shabbos of Tammuz of Elul, Tishrei, Cheshvan is nothing, Kislev, Hanukkah, right? And then Teves. Low psul means that they didn't make a difference. They made people that they should not differentiate. They always have the Yom Tov Sheni. Yeah, Pesach and Sukkot and Shavuos also have Yom Tov Sheni. And then Teves, the Gemara is going to ask about the Sabbath. Teves, Shvat is nothing, and then Adar. Everything's good. The Gemara is the kasha, V'lifkanam Yatamuz B'Teves. What happened to Shabbos of Tammuz and the Sabbath Teves? If you go out for Tisha B'Av, so also for Tammuz and Teves. The fourth one is going to be Tzom Gedalia, but that's Tishrei anyway, so that's not a problem. They went for Tishrei. But Tammuz and Teves, they're not going to know when to do the fast. So that's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara continues to explain that there's such a fast called Shivasa B'Tammuz and Asar B'Teves, Amud Beis. Tamar, Rav Chana Bar Bizna, Rav Shimon Chasida, Ma'itach said, Kol Ma Hashem Tzavaos. This is the pasuk in Zechariah, I think. Yes, Zechariah. Kol Ma Hashem Tzavaos, and Tzomar Revit, Tzomar Chamisha, Tzomar Shvit, Tzomar Sivi, Yela Beis Yudav, Sasan Ulu Simcha. Over there, the pasuk talks about that. They're middle of building the Beis HaMikdash, second Beis HaMikdash, and the people wanted to know if they should continue fasting. They were fasting because of the Chorban by Rishon. Should they continue fasting the way they did until now? And over there, Hashem answered, there's no reason to fast. So said Hashem, the fast of the fourth, the fast of the fifth, all these things means month. The fourth month, the fifth month, the seventh month, the 10th month, they're going to become a happiness. That the whole tzom is only because of the Chorban, because of the destruction. The Beis Mikdash is going to be built. It's only going to be happiness. But the Gemara is making a drush that sometimes it's called a tzom, and sometimes it's called Sasan B'Simcha. These days, these 4 days, sometimes are called a fast day, sometimes it's called a happiness. Karilu Tzom, Karilu Sasan B'Simcha. What is it? And the answer is, Shalom, Yil Sasan B'Simcha. Ain't Shalom Tzom. If there's peace, so then there's going to be happiness. If not, then there's going to be a tzom. So the Pashut Pshat of the Gemara will seem to be Shalom means when there's a Beis HaMikdash. When the Beis HaMikdash is standing, so then it's happiness. It's a Yom Tov. When no Beis HaMikdash, then it's a tzom. So the Gemara seems to be asking that all these 4 Tanesim, all 4, not only Tisha B'Av, also Shabbos B'Tammuz, Asar B'Teves, some Gedalia, all of them when there's no Beis HaMikdash, there's a tzom. So how come you don't go out to tell people when the tzom is supposed to be? Rashi says a little different than I said. Rashi says not the Beis HaMikdash. Rashi says when there's no Gzeira of Shmad, when there's no Yesh Shalom means that the Goyim are not subjecting us, that they're not ruling over us, and Ein Shalom means that the Goyim are subjecting us. Rashi maybe got it from the Gemara coming up. Amra Papa Kamar. The Gemara can answer though. It's not the way you read it. That's true. When there's a Beis HaMikdash and everything's good, so then there's Sasan Ul Simcha. Yesh Gzeres Malchus, but they say it's Shmad. Shmad was the real Shmad. When there was a Shmad that the Goyim were trying to stop the mitzvahs, so then tzom. Then you have to fast. But how about this intermediate kind of a stage? Ein Gzeres Malchus, Ein Shalom. Neither. There's not the Beis HaMikdash. Beis HaMikdash is not standing, but there's no Gzeres Shmad against us. So then it's only Rishus. Then if you want to fast, it's not a reason to make a party. No partying. There's no Yontif. It's not Sasan B'Simcha, but it's not a tzom either. If you want to, you could fast. If not, you don't have to. The Gemara's answer is that at the time that there's no Beis HaMikdash, but there's no Gzeres Malchus, there's no Shmad, so it's only Rishus. You don't have to fast on the other fasts. The Gemara's Masun saying Tisha B'Av is different, but Shabbos B'Tammuz and Asar B'Teves, Tzom Gedalia, it's only Rishus, and therefore for Rishus they didn't send out Shluchim. If someone doesn't want to fast, or fast to the wrong day, it's not a problem. On the days that it's a chol to fast, so they have to know which is the right day. But if it's not a chol, it's only Rishus, so it's not terrible if they don't know when it is. So the Gemara says, if so, Tisha B'Av shouldn't be any more chamor. Yachi Tisha B'Av Nami should also only be a Rishus. How come they go out on Av if they are tainis? Tisha B'Av hold the hook below both tzaras. So since there was many tzaras that happened on Tisha B'Av, the Gemara means the Mishnah Damamar, or I forgot, maybe it's not a Mishnah, it's a Brisa, or Damamar. The Tisha B'Av, V'chor B'Bayis B'Rishanu B'Shniya, both of the destruction, the first temple and the second temple, both of them were destroyed on Tisha B'Av. When you look at the Beta was conquered about 60 years after the Churban. The Nechma Sha'ir and Yerushalayim also, years later, the city of Yerushalayim was raised. I think by Tunis Rufus. I think that was. But anyway, since many tzaros happened, it means that serious some say means because both Batei Mikdash, or it means that many tzaros that are very chomer, even though Shabbos B'Tammuz also had 5 things that happened on Shabbos B'Tammuz, but they're not as chomer as these. So therefore, Tisha B'Av has the chumrah that it's always a chov, even if there's no Xeris Malchus, there's still a chov. So for the Gemara say that Shabbos B'Tammuz and Tzom Gedalia also, that's not the subject, and also Asar B'Teves, that it's not when there's no Xeris Malchus, there's no Xeris Shmad, so it's only a Rishus, and they didn't send out the Shluchim since it's only a Rishus. The rest of the Gemara goes on a side point of the Tzom HaAsiri, the fifth of Teves. So I said the whole time Asar B'Teves, but it's not so simple. We know Asar B'Teves, but there wasn't going to be no machlokes if it's Asar B'Teves or Chamisha B'Teves. It's not so simple. What is the fast of the 10th month? Tanya, I'm Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon, that's Rav Shimon Bar he said, Abot Dvar Ma'ir B'Kiva Dorish, V'ani Ein Dorish Kemoso. There are 4 things that Rav Kiva Darshan that I don't agree with him on 4 points. The Gemara is only going to say one of them, and 3 of them Rashi brings down what they're referring to, but our Gemara is not going to discuss it at all. What the other 3? But this is one of them. And the question is going to be what is Teves? What is Teves? What is the Tzom HaAsiri? But first the Gemara goes through the 4th, the 5th, the 7th, which everybody agrees to. Machlokes is going to be what the 10th one is, the fast of the 10th month, and that's what it's going to be a Machlokes. So it starts off somewhere over here. It says in the pasuk over there in Zechariah that there's the fast of the 4th. Zeh Tes B'Tammuz. That's the 9th of Tammuz. So everyone's going to ask us Shabbos B'Tammuz, not the 9th of Tammuz. So that's the Gemara. That's the Gemara on Tainus, the Gemara Kasha. And how can we fast on Shabbos B'Tammuz? The Gemara says the pasuk says the 9th of Tammuz. Shabbos Hufka. That's the day that the city was broken into. Shenema Chodesh Aravi, Batish Al Chodesh, Vayachazak Arav V'Lo Lachem Lam Haaretz. Pasuk says that on the 9th of the month, 9th of the 4th month, 9th of Tammuz, the hunger became strong in the city and there was no food for the people and the city was broken into. So the pasuk says it was the 9th. How come we fast on the 17th? So the Gemara says that the Bais Sheni, this is the Bais Rishon, the Bais Sheni, it happened on the 17th of Tammuz. That's why we fast on the 17th. Why is it called in the pasuk somewhere Revi, the 4th fast? Because of the 4th month. Tammuz, that's when it happened. And that's what it means always. The Gemara is not going to have any question about that. Revi, Chamishi, Shvi, see all that I mean a month. I'm not sure why the Gemara keeps on saying it again and again. It seems to be the Pashup Shot. But the Gemara makes a point out of it that it means which month it is. So somewhere Revi meant the Tammuz, and the reason was because the city was broken into. Tzom HaChamishi is Tisha B'Av. The fast of the 5th is the 9th of Av. Shavon Nisha Beis Elokeinu. That was the day that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The house of our God was destroyed. Again, why is it called the 5th? Because it's the 5th month. That's Av. Tzom HaShvi, the fast of the 7th. What's that? Zegim of Tishrei. That's the 3rd of Tishrei. Shavon Neregi Gedalia ben Achikam. Gedalia ben Achikam was killed. He was assassinated. We have Rogo Yishmael ben Nesanya Rogo. That's the pasuk. The pasuk says the whole story. The fact that they made a fast day for it is to show you that it's equal the death of tzaddikim like burning the Beis Hamikdash. The same way that there were fast days for the burning of the Beis Hamikdash, so too for the death of tzaddikim. Even the Pashup Shot is because that was how the remnant of the Am Yisrael that was left in Eretz Yisrael was extinguished. But the Gemara makes the point because of Yisrael Shem Sal Tzaddikim. Again, why is it called the 7th? Because it's the 7th month that it's in Tishrei. And then Tzom HaAsiri, here's going to be the Machlokes. Tzom HaAsiri, the fast of the 10th. So what is that? The Kiva says that's Asar B'Teves. Why is it called the fast? What happened? Why is that a bad day? What happened on that day? Shavos Samach Melech Bavel al Yerushalayim. That's the day that the siege began. The siege on Yerushalayim began on the 10th of Teves. Shenemar, Vayihi, Dvar Hashem Elai Vashanat Shiyis, B'chodesh HaAsiri, V'asal HaChodesh Leimor, Ben Adam, Ksav L'cha Hashem Hayom, Eset Sam Hayom Hazeh, Samach Melech Bavel al Yerushalayim. This is all the pasuk in Yecheskel, and it says Yecheskel was in Bavel. And Hashem told him in Bavel in the 9th year. The 9th year is before the whole Churban. It was the 9th, 10th, 11th. So in the 9th year of Yoyachin, in the 10th month, on the 10th of the day, Asar B'Teves, Hashem told Yecheskel, write down this day, even though he's in Bavel, he wasn't in Eretz Yisrael. Write down this day. I'm telling you a prophecy that at this very time, the king of Bavel besieged Yerushalayim. And then later on, people will see that he knew. How did he know? Because Hashem told him. You see that the nevuah is true. But it says that the siege on Yerushalayim happened on the Asar B'Teves. Again, why is it called the fast of the 10th? Because it was the 10th month, Teves. Now the kasha is that everything else is in order besides this one. It says the 4th, the 5th, the 7th, and the 10th. The 4th was what we say Hufka'ir, that the city was broken into. The 5th was that Beis Mikdash was destroyed. The 7th was that Gedalia was killed. That was after the Churban. Everything's in order, chronological order. But now the first of the 10th is Asar B'Tevis is going backwards. It's going to be the besiegement, which was before the whole story, 3 years earlier. So it's out of order. This should have been first, according to chronological order. The siege happened before everything. Why was it written at the end? Because it's going in the order of the months, 4, 5, 7, 10, even though the 10th was really chronologically happened early, many years earlier, but it goes according to the list goes according to the months. This was Rabbi Akiva's way of explaining Soma Asiri. But Rabbi Shimon says, I argue, top line, Va'ani, Eini, Omer, Kain. I, Rabbi Shimon, don't agree. Soma Asiri is Chamisha B'Teves. When the pasuk says the first of the 10th month, it's not the 10th of Teves on the siege, it's the 5th of Teves. What happened on the 5th of Teves? Shebo Bos Shmuel Lagola. That's later on, after the Churban, after Gedalia was killed. Then the news came to people in Babel that the city was struck. So they didn't find out about it until many months later. That it was on the 12th year, in the 10th month, and the 5th of the month, to our Golos, the Golos Yochim. It came to me, someone, an escapee from Yerushalayim, and he said that the city was struck. So now it's chronological order. The first, it talks about 4th, 5th, 7th, and then the 10th. The 4th was Hufka'ir, the city was broken in, and then the Beis Mikdash was destroyed, then Gedalia was killed, and then later on, the news came to the people in Golos that the Yerushalayim was struck. So it's in chronological order. And they made the day that they heard about it, they made it as Chomor. They didn't hear about it until then. People in Golos didn't have communication. So they heard about it months later, and they made it as Chomor as the day that it was burned, and they made a fast day on that day also. And it seems that my pshat is better than Rabbi Akiva's pshat. Rabbi Akiva says that it's Asar B'Teves because of the siege. I'm saying it's the 5th of Teves because they heard the news. I'm going to order. Why did my pshat the psukim on order? Chronological order, 4th, 5th, 7th, and 10th. But the who he's out of order because the last thing of Asar B'Teves happened first, and what he put first as it's not in chronological order. He, Rabbi Akiva's pshat is going to count according to the Seder of the months of the year, even though it's not in chronological order. And I'm counting also according to the order that it actually happened. So that's the end of that point. It's my focus. Which one is a Soma Asiri? Of course, we pass on like Rabbi Akiva, that is Asar B'Teves, and we don't fast on Chamisha B'Teves. New subject. The Gemara talks about a new subject, which is going to be for a while now, and it's called Megillas Tainus. Megillas Tainus is not Maseches Tainus. Maseches Tainus is a Masechta of the Shas Bavli, and it's a Masechta about fasting. When you're supposed to fast, when there's a drought, when you're supposed to fast. There's a Masechta called Megillas Tainus. So not the same thing. They have it in print also. It's printed. You can find it also. It's put out by Oz V'Hodar, a small little book. It's not the same size as any Masechta, and it's very short. And even with the Pirush, it's very short. It's a very small book. And it's the first Masechta. They say that's the first Masechta that was ever written down. It's the first Torah Sheba'al Peh that was put to writing. And it's the dates. It's dates that say that these dates are Yom Tovim. It's like a mini Yom Tovim, Yom Tov D'Rabbanan, because of different good things that happened throughout time. And they made a Yom Tov D'Rabbanan in it. Chanukah and Purim also over there. Chanukah and Purim also Yom Tov D'Rabbanan. But there are many other days over there. You can make a calendar out of it to know which days are in Megillas Tainus. I'm sure that they have it in the calendars, probably the calendars that have all the yard sites and things like that. They also have Megillas Tainus dates over there also. It's available in the bookstore, you can buy it. So there's a Yom Tov D'Rabbanan, those over there, Megillas Tainus are days that you're not allowed to fast. Maseches Tainus means the days you're supposed to fast. And Megillas Tainus means the days that you're not allowed to fast. And over there, there's also even more than a more bigger Yom Tov that you're not allowed to make fast, but also you can't eulogize somebody that died. So that's a book of Yom Tovim. And the question is, after the Churban, is that book still relevant? Means that those halachas, that they still apply it now that you're not allowed to fast on those days. It's considered Yom Tovim. That's going to be the sugi now. And it comes in because it has relevance to the sugi we just spoke about before. Rabbi Chanina, Amri, Itma, we learned. Rabbi Chanina, Amri, Batal Megillas Tainus. Rabbi Chanina hold that it doesn't apply anymore. It's nullified, no more such thing. You're allowed to fast on all those days. It's not anymore Yom Tovim. Rabbi Yochanan, Bishul Levi, Amri, Lo Batal Megillas Tainus. They say no, that it's still in effect, and you're not allowed to fast on those days. Rabbi Chanina, Amri, Batal Megillas Tainus, because they learn that from what we said before. I'll say the Gemara outside, and we'll see it inside. That we said that these 4 fast days, Revi, Chamishi, Shvi, Asiri, all these 4 days, when the Beis Mikdash is standing, they were Yom Tovim. And then when the Beis Mikdash was destroyed, it became a fast day again. And there's no more Yom Tov. So he says the same way that when the Churban happened, they made these holidays into sad days. And even if it's a Rishus, but there's no more Yom Tov anymore, Yom Tov would mean that you're not allowed to do Hesped V'Tainis. And now after the Churban, they were nullified. So too, all of these many Yom Tovim, they also became nullified. That's what he says over here. Before we said about the 4 Tanesim, when there's the Beis Hamikdash, so then they have days of happiness. Ein Shalom Tzom. When there's no Beis Hamikdash, then it became its own. At least the Rishus. And these holidays also, they were a holiday in times of the Beis Hamikdash, but after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so no more holidays anymore. The same way these holidays went down. So also the holidays of the Shiva the 9th of Tammuz, whatever, Shiva Tammuz, and all Yom Tovim. Tisha B'Av was a Yom Tov during the Beis Hamikdash, and Bai Sheni, and what else? And Shiva the 3rd of Tishrei was a Yom Tov. Asar B'Tevis was a Yom Tov, and then after the Beis Hamikdash, it became no more Yom Tov anymore. So too, all these other Yom Tovim. That says in Megillas Tainis also they became nullified. That was Rav and Rabbi Chanina. How about the Baruch and Rabbi Shulman? But they say it's different. Amri lo bata Megillas Tainis. It's still in effect. Because there's no comparison over there. Those Yom Tovim were Yom Tovim about they first were fast days, and the reason they became Yom Tov is because by the Binyan by Sheni it became a Yom Tov because the whole reason why they were fast days was because of the whole Bayis Rishon. During the 7 years they were fasting, and then when the Bayis Sheni was built, so then it became a Yom Tov, and then when the Bayis Sheni is destroyed, it became no more Yom Tov anymore because the whole essence of those days has to do with the Beis Hamikdash. But these Yom Tovim of Megillas Tainis has nothing to do with the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, it doesn't go down when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. Masav Rav Kana. The Rav Kana is a kasha to show that Megillas Tainis is still in effect. It says in the Brisa, in Lud, the city Lud, they made a Tainis on Hanukkah. Now, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to make it. Hanukkah is one of the days of Megillas Tainis. You're not allowed to make a fast. And they made a fast day because they held that what Megillas Tainis after the Churban. So the times of Rabbi Yeshua, it's going to say right away, and it was after the Churban, and they made a Tainis on Hanukkah. And Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yeshua protested. Rabbi Elazar washed to show that it's not a Tainis. Rabbi Yeshua took a haircut. They said that it's Hanukkah today. It's not a fast day. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yeshua said to the people of Lud, do tshuva for what you fasted. You're not allowed to fast on Hanukkah. So what do you see? They say that even though the Beis Mikdash was destroyed already, still Megillas Tainis is still in effect. You're not allowed to fast on Hanukkah. So too, all the Megillas Tainis, you're not allowed to fast on the days of Megillas Tainis because it's still in effect. Rav Yosef, Shani Hanukkah Deika Mitzvah. Hanukkah is different than the rest of Megillas Tainis. It's true, Hanukkah is in Megillas Tainis, but there's something special about it because it's a mitzvah. The mitzvah to light the candles over there. Besides just Hesped V'Tainis, they also said that you have to light candles. That's why it's stronger and it doesn't fall with the Beis Hamikdash. What's the problem? So say there's no mitzvah of Ner Chanukah either. They made a mitzvah of Adlakas Ner Chanukah. But then if it's going to become batal, so then there's no Chanukah, there's no Ner Chanukah either. Rav Yosef, Shani Chanukah, the Mefarsim Nisa. So Rashi says the Mefarsim doesn't just mean Pesum Nisa. You might have learned the Gemara that the Pesum Nisa is very important. But Rashi says it doesn't mean that. It means that once it became publicized because of the mitzvahs, so it became publicized. It's an Am Yisrael accepted Chanukah as a big Yom Tov. So therefore, we're not going to take it down anymore. So Hanukkah and a Purim, obviously, is also going to be an exception, and that does remain according to everybody. But it's not a kasha from the rest of the rest of Megillas Tainis. The rest of Megillas Tainis was butter. It's not a kasha and Rav and Rabbi Chanina. They say that the rest of Megillas Tainis doesn't apply anymore. But Hanukkah and Purim, they say that it does because it was Mefarsim Nisa. Mosiv Rav Acha Bar Huna. Another kasha. It says in Megillas Tainis. This is quoting Megillas Tainis. In the 3rd of Tishrei, besides being Tzom Gedalia, it says that there's a Yom Tov because the Hazkaros, the word Hazkarta means Hazkara, mentioning. The mentioning was nullified from contracts. So Rashi says, the Gemara is going to say what the story was over there, that there was a minhag to write the name of Hashem in the contract. And Chazal didn't like that. Don't write the name of Hashem in the contract, and they were successful in getting people not to do it, and that was a Yom Tov. The Yom Tov was that people stopped writing Hashem's name in the contract. What happened? What was the history? When the Yevanim, when the Greeks were in power, they made a decree that you're not allowed to mention Hashem's name. No one should mention Hashem's name. You can't say Baruch Hashem, you can't say Mirz Hashem, you can't mention Hashem's name. וכשגבר מלכוס חשמונאי ונוצחם הסכימו שהוא מסכים שם שמיים, אפילו בשטרות. And then when the Chashmonai were able to conquer the Yevonim, so they made a takana on the contrary. Not that you could mention Hashem's name, you should always mention Hashem's name, and even in contracts, to put Hashem's name into contract. How do you do that? When they would write a contract, they would write the date of the king, Kohen Gadol. They would write B'shnas kach v'kach Yochanan Kohen Gadol le'el elyon. They would write when I had at the beginning of Masechta, he would write the dates according to the king. Here says the Kohen Gadol. So it says in this year of the reign of Yochanan Kohen Gadol le'el elyon. He was the Kohen le'el elyon. He was the Kohen Gadol who served the supreme God. El Elyon. They put in the words Kel Elyon. So they made a takana to put Hashem's name into the contract. But the Chacham, that's what the Beis Chashmonai did. But the Chacham were not happy about that. What's going to happen after the contract is going to be paid up? So then they're going to throw away the document and it's going to be in the garbage. Put Hashem's name. So don't write Hashem's name in the contract. They nullified this takana to write Hashem's name in the contract. And it was a miracle that people accepted it. The day that they were successful in getting Hashem's name not to be in the contract, we would have thought that the day that they were able to say Hashem's name after the Yevonim, the Chashmonim, they conquered them, we would have thought that's the Yom Tov. But no, the Yom Tov was when they got the name of Hashem out of the contract, that it shouldn't be in the contract in the garbage with Hashem's name. They made it a Yom Tov. So what do you see? In the Megillah Tainus, it talks about a Yom Tov. The third of Tishrei, something to do with this takana about the Shtorah shouldn't have Hashem's name. For some reason, we'll see tomorrow, for some reason the Gemara thinks that it was after the Chorban. The Gemara thinks the story was after the Chorban. If it's after the Chorban, you see that the Megillah Tainus applies even after the Chorban, because even not only are they make even new Yom Tovim, they're inventing new Yom Tovim after the Chorban. So you see that Megillah Tainus still applies. If Megillah Tainus is nullified after the Chorban, everything is off. So then, if the first Yom Tovim went off, you're going to make more new Yom Tovim. For some reason, the Gemara doesn't tell us yet why. It thinks that this story happened after the Chorban. So you see that Megillah Tainus is still active even after the Chorban. So the Gemara answers simply, no, it's after the Chorban. It's during the Chorban. It's during the Beis Hamikdash. It's talking about when the Beis Hamikdash is still standing. That's why they made the Yom Tov. But after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, it all went off. So we're in the middle of the Gemara. The Gemara didn't explain yet why he thinks that it's talking about after the Chorban. But we'll stop here. We're in the middle of this last Friday. We'll start again tomorrow from this last kasha about the story about the Shtoros. But so far we have machlokes about the Megillah Tainus or not. End of the daf today. To summarize today's issues, we had a machlokes about Gzeira on the Yachid, if it's possible to nullify it even after it was sealed. And even though till now we went that it's not possible to rescind it, but there is a Machlokes Rav Meir that says yes. Rabbi Yitzchak also says it seems even if you hold that you could not rescind the Gzeira on the Yachid, but it's possible. Yafat Tzaka, something does help. Like the Iran says, it does help something. After that, the Gemara says that even the Gzeira on the Tzibur that they could nullify, but if it has a shvua that Hashem's not going to accept the shvua, then it's not acceptable. And that was the case of Eli, that it said that it's not going to be accepted for Zevach Mincha. Agav, the Gemara says that maybe Torah in the Milach Sasadim is helpful, like Rabban Abaye, 40-60, and also the people of Rebechem and Zaka, he told them, and they lived longer than 18. After that, the Gemara says again the machlokes is a different psukim, but the Gemara brings again that Gzardin of the Rabbim is possible to nullify, like it says B'chol Kareinu Ve'lov, but a Yachid is only Desha Hashem B'Yitzah, which is until Yom Kippur. After that, it's already decreed, it's already Gzardin, and then you cannot rescind it anymore. The Gemara Agav brought about Novo, that some say that was Aseres Me'Tshuva, some say it was just 10 days that he was extended because he gave some a meal, but the other shot is that Hashem waited until after Aseres Me'Tshuva, he still didn't know. After that, three pshatim in Maron, either it means the sheep or it means that pathway that's called Malos Beis Maron or Astachelo Shal Beis David. And the Gemara ends off that even though they're judged individually, but Hashem sees everything together, and the Gemara says the pasuk is also mashma like that. Hayotzi Yachal Libam, Rashi goes back to Shgiach, Hayotzi Yachal Libam. And then the Gemara talks about which months you send out shluchim for, and says only 6 out of the 12. The Gemara defined, so far the Gemara just discussed how come Tammuz and Teves not. And the question is, there also in the pasuk talks about the 4th Hanesim, and how come only Tisha B'Av we're talking about? And the Gemara answers because it's only Rishus. When there's no Beis Hamikdash, but there's no Zera Shema, it's only Rishus, and therefore they didn't send the shluchim out for Rishus. Agav, the Gemara brings a machlokes. And I'm sorry, and Tisha, and why is it Rishus? Because there's no Shalom and no Gzeira, but Tisha B'Av is Soch B'lo Batzaros, and therefore it's Chov even when there's no Gzeiras Malchus. Then the more brought along Bryce and a set of machlokes about what's the fast of the 10th. is it Asar B'Teves like we hold because of the siege, or the 5th of Teves, which is after the destruction when they found out about it in Babel, and you pass like Rabbi Akiva that it's Asar B'Teves, even though it's not in chronological order, it's in the order of the months. And the last more we just started now the sugya about Megillas Tainus, that even though we say about Megillas Tainus by our Gemara that the Yom Tovim, these fast days, which became Yom Tovim, by the Churban they became again not to be Yom Tovim, but it's Machlokes of Megillas Tainus, which is general Yom Tovim about different good things that happen, doesn't get nullified with the Churban, and so far some Machlokes on the wrong. The Gemara has said Hanukkah everybody agrees to, Hanukkah and Purim, because Mefarsim Nisa, that it's very publicized by everybody, so they don't want to be Mevatel with. And we're in the middle of a kasha. The Gemara says that the 3rd of Tishrei was a Yontif, because they were able to be Mevatel writing Hashem's name in the contracts. And the Gemara, for some reason, thinks that it happened after the Churban, and that'll be a kasha on those who hold that Bottom Megillas Tainus. You see Yom Tovim that make new ones even after the Churban. And the so far the Gemara says simply that it's happened during the Beis HaMikdash, and it's a simple answer. And we'll see tomorrow why the Gemara doesn't think so. Yashikov. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
In a few
Well,
minutes.
have a good day.
Thank you. And what is the plan today? To do Pirkei Avos. We're off one day, so we'll do Pirkei Avos today.